Everyone is moving forward together. The success take care of itself. Today is an extraordinary example in town and country planning history of Sri Lanka, showcasing how successful accomplishments can be achieved when collective dignitaries gathered as one for one purpose, to drive Sri Lanka for a new dawn of prosperity. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great pleasure and honor we warmly welcome you all to the 40th anniversary celebration of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka.
Yes, today is a milestone. It's a day of honor, appreciation, and motivation. Today we felicitate 40 years of successive endeavor of this mother institute, ITPSL. She has been the root foundation giving life to hundreds of planners each year in Sri Lanka. So let us pay our tribute by officially commencing the celebrations of her 40th anniversary.
Welcome to the ITPSL 14th anniversary.
Facing the future with confidence. That is our theme for the 40th anniversary. So next we are moving on to the proceedings of the 40th anniversary celebrations. To make this evening blessed from our traditions, we would like to invite following dignitaries to commence the ceremony by lighting the traditional oil lamp. First, I would like to invite Plnr Hemantha Jayasundara, President of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Ms. Yamuna Jayarathna, Director Sales and Marketing, CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited, Plnr Kishan Sugathapala, President-elect of ITPSL, Plnr Priyani Navratna, Secretary, ITPSL, Plnr Vincent Gnanadeepan, Treasurer, ITPSL, Plnr Aruna Bandara, Vice President, ITPSL,
Plnr Dr. Lochana Gunaratna, Past President. Plnr Hemantha Jayasundara, Past President. Plnr P.L. Silva, Past President. Plnr Indu Veerasuri, Past President. Plnr Raja Samaravikrama, Senior Member. Plnr Nirmala Herath, First Lady Town Planner. A member from representing YPF. And Plnr Chintaka Ratnasiri, Chairman, 40th Anniversary Organizing Committee.
Thank you very much, everyone. Next, to pay respect to nation's glory, I request you all to rise up for the national anthem of Sri Lanka.
Please remain standing for 2 minutes silence to commemorate the deceased members.
Thank you. This year's theme, Facing the Future with Confidence. Several tremendous items are lined up for you on today's program. So first and foremost, to welcome you all to this special evening, I would like to invite the chairman of the 40th Anniversary Committee, Plnr Chintaka Ratnasiri.
A very good evening, all of you. On behalf of the organizing committee, I warmly welcome you all to the 40th anniversary celebration event of the Institute of Town Planner Sri Lanka. Today is an important milestone of the Institute as it celebrates 40 years of establishment since 1982, 4 decades. Sri Lanka, the wonder of Asia, South Asian gateway, pearl of Indian Ocean. That's how we love to see our country in the global map. But the foreign exchange deficit that we are facing right now and struggling to meet basic needs in the globalized world have shown us where we are. And the prevailing global pandemic situation has given many lessons to rethink about how we should face the future. Although it is not a high time for celebrations, we thought to create a platform for our town planners to rethink about our journey for last 4 decades and future challenges to face as the professionals who support to make decisions on land development that lead the development of people and the country. In this context, we are celebrating this 40th anniversary of the ITPSL under the theme of Facing the Future with Confidence. And for this occasion, we have invited Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness as the chief guest, and we are waiting to welcome Dr. Nalaka Godahewa on his arrival. And we are having addresses of 2 eminent members of the Institute this evening. First of all, I would like to warmly welcome Vidyajothi, Emeritus Professor, Dr. Willie Mendis. And Professor will speak about history of the profession of town planning in Sri Lanka. Professor Mendis is one of the pioneer members who worked hard to establish the ITPSL and promote town planning as a profession in Sri Lanka. Dear Professor, your presence to address the gathering via online is a privilege for us always. We have invited one of the past president of the ITPSL, a well-experienced professional in urban planning, Plnr Hemantha Jayasundara, to address the gathering on way forward of the profession. Dear Plnr Jayasundara, we highly appreciate your presence today. Then we have invited CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited to deliver a presentation on Colombo Port City Development Project, which is being discussed as one of the key urban development projects in Sri Lanka right now. So we hope the spillover effect of the Colombo Port City Development Project will take place all over the country, creating more competitive cities in future. So let me warmly welcome Ms. Hemantha Jayasundara, Director Sales and Marketing, and Plnr Aruna Bandara, Manager Urban Planning, representing CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited. Finally, yet importantly, let me warmly welcome all members of the ITPSL representing to fellow members, corporate members, associate members, and student members for this occasion who are participating physically and online via Zoom platform. Hope we will have a wonderful evening today with ITPSL Award 2021, which would motivate all our members to face the future with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Plnr Chintaka Ratnasiri, the chairman of the 40th Anniversary Celebrations Committee. Next up, we are ready to take you through the journey of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka.
The ITPSL was established in 1982 under the provisions of Parliament Act as the professional body responsible for enhancing the town planning profession in Sri Lanka. Throughout these years, the Institute played a lead role in expressing its professional opinion on matters directly and indirectly concerned with the urban and regional development in Sri Lanka. It has offered its advice and services to the government, semi-government institutions, and provincial and local authorities.
So let us look back at the impressive journey of 40 years of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka.
Next up, a dance performance is ready to be staged to welcome and color the event. Please put your hands together to the dancing crew from Sri Dance Academy, Veyangoda.
Thank you very much, dancing crew, for that wonderful performance. Next, we would like to move on to the first keynote session of the 40th anniversary celebration event of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. The theme of the first keynote session is Evolution of Urban Planning as a Profession in Sri Lanka. And one of the most well-renowned personalities in the field of town and country planning in Sri Lanka is ready to deliver the session. Sajani will introduce our keynote speaker.
Yes, Shahan, this speaker is an eminent character in the planning industry because he's the pioneer who led the incorporation of ITPSL under the Parliamentary Act in 1986. He also took the lead in establishing the town planning education in Sri Lanka. Professor Mendis also took over the responsibilities as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Murutua in 1983 and became the youngest ever in Sri Lanka. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka and Royal Town Planning Institute in UK. Please welcome Vidyajothi Emeritus, Professor Dr. Willie Mendis.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good evening to all the fellow town planners, Madam President, and all the council members. 40 years is a memory for me of unbelievable background because it's an event that I will never forget. And that immediately tells what could have happened after 40 years. And today's event, in fact, reconfirms that it has been a sustainable exercise. I can recall the first meeting as an association of 5 members where we felt that the number has to be increased to get recognition as a national body. So the 5 people decided to wait for a year or two till the first batch of the master's degree program graduates came out. And then we had the first event where in which the Commonwealth Association of Planners came over to Sri Lanka for their first meeting of the Commonwealth Planning Institute in Sri Lanka. And that gave a little advantage for us to accelerate the legal part of it and form the first Institute of Town and Country Planning Act, number 46 of 1986. And that immediately puts our entire institute into national focus. Now, the advantage in that is our ITPSL becomes the exclusive provider of qualified town planners with their own educational background and skills to set up all requests coming from the government or the private sector. That time, the private sector was not so large, and therefore the housing development was very limited, never mind the commercial buildings, and therefore the request was entirely from the government, and therefore in 1978, when there was a change of government in which Honorable Premadasa became the Minister for Housing and Construction, and as well as the Prime Minister, and suddenly we saw the boom for town planning happening because of the setting up of the new town, new capital city of Kotte, and a huge amount of urban-based activities throughout the country. UDA became the pioneer in promoting town planning practice in actual sense, and a record of learning from that incident has been enormous. Now, the UDA's performance, however, immediately downsized the role in which the traditional town and country planning department could perform in the country. It was limited. But with time, the UDA's role and the town planning department became a little more reorganized. And now we have both institutes offering opportunities for town planners. Now, in parallel to this, we have had in these 40 years the growth of the real estate developers, and which included housing as a major component. And they too began to see the need for planning approvals that had to be got from the UDA as well as the local authorities of the respective locations. And all of them, in fact, thought that they must have their own town planning staff. And now we have many of them engaging town planners in their practice. Now, in addition to that, the dissemination of town planners became a little more widespread. The banks in particular became private banks, became in particular provider of opportunities for town planners in their own way, not as town planners, but in the banking staff. And you could see the advantage of having these multidisciplinary trained staff. Capability was very clear. They moved from the modern technologies in addition to the conventional form of town planning practice, and suddenly the opportunities for town planners began to grow. And it was not before long that we had a few town planners setting up their own consultancy companies. We had Surat Vikram Singh in his own architecture practice having town planners to provide town planning advice. Then we had a few others who began to architectural practices which began to include the town planning component in their own practice. Now this immediately became a little more opportunity not only for town planners but for other professions to know that we are now in the peak and limelight of the services in the construction industry in all forms. But we widened our horizon into environmental matters and also into landscaping and all these other important factors in which habitat becomes identified, and human settlement planning became a little more clearer, and this became a little more, even more clearer after the tsunami, and where we play a major role in that. And thereafter, now more recently, the collapse of earth in many places where there have been lands collapsing of the lands into human habitat. And now we have the National Building Research Organization, in which I understand Planner Sugutapala is playing a major role in the institute now, in which the planners are required to approve construction in those sensitive areas that it has come. Now, one mustn't forget at this moment the contribution by the Department of Town and Planning in setting up an amendment act in which even the UDA in getting their plans approved now has to get the common concurrence of the Town and Country Planning Department vis-a-vis their National Physical Plan. Now we have an approved National Physical Plan, which however has not yet gone into the more widened horizon of resource allocation, in which the Planning Ministry, for example, and the Finance Ministry has not yet given the due role that they must include in their resource allocation in making sure the so-called vulnerable lands in the country in terms of environment, in terms of tourism, in which this is playing a major role, and in terms of industry, manufacturing industry, services, transport sector. They are now in so many individual ministries, and the coordination of them is now a very important role in which the town planners are trained and skilled to do, which I'm sure in the way forward it's going to happen. So 40 years has been a historical change for people like us who were involved in the beginning of this huge institute now, but how much sort of feelings that we have in our minds and hearts that the successive presidents and successive councils have been able to sustain the institute into its prominence as well as its role playing in national development. I have no doubt that the picture will become even more clearer as you march towards the next 40 years. And there I must acknowledge, although I don't acknowledge by person, but in this particular case, I must, the past president, Planner P.L. Silva, who made a huge effort to make sure that we now have our own. It's the most happiest event to see happening. Thank you, and all the best to you in the evening's events. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Willie Mendis, for your valuable speech. And we would like to thank him for joining us despite all the technical difficulties and all the things we all know. So he has to join us through a mobile device due to a technical difficulty. So with all these arrangements, he still managed to address the 40th anniversary celebrations of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka. So once again, let's give a round of applause to Professor Willie Mendis for addressing the 40th anniversary celebrations of the Institute. Thank you very much, sir. So next, we would like to move on to another important segment lined up in today's program. The Port City Development Project. Port City Colombo is a brand new city development built as an extension of the central business district of Sri Lanka's vibrant commercial capital. Colombo, it's building on the latest sustainable city designs and smart city concept and aim to be the most livable city in South Asia. Today, we have the honor of having two representatives from Colombo Port City project to enlighten about this revolutionary ongoing development.
Please welcome on stage Planner Aruna Bandara, Manager in Urban Planning, CHEC Port City, Colombo Private Limited, and Ms. Hemantha Jayasundara, Director Sales and Marketing from CHEC Port City, Colombo Private Limited.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, first I would like to thank Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka for inviting us to deliver this presentation. Okay. All right. Port City Colombo. The project is coming with this vision with building a world-class city for South Asia. So from the very start of the project, it was aiming at the top targets in terms of urban development. First, let me give you an overview of this project. The entire land area that was reclaimed was 269 hectares. And out of that, only 179 hectares are sellable. Rest are dedicated for public spaces, roads, and other utilities. The total built space that we are expecting there is 6.3 million square meters. And we are expecting to have nearly 82,000 residential population. And on top of that, 191,000 transit population. As I mentioned before, we have a lot of public areas. Roughly, it is about 7 square meters per person, which is kind of a high value for this kind of urban area. And with this development, we are expected to have at least 120 hectares of green landscape areas, that is including vertical landscaping. And last but not least, we have beautiful beach stretch that is around 1.5 kilometers. Now, let me take you through this history of this planning process. The initial feasibility studies were done by a couple of international companies, CBRE and JAL, during 2011 and 2013. Based on those findings, the master plan was developed by CHEC, a Swedish company, and it was completed in 2015. It was given the preliminary planning approval by UDA on the same year. And based on that, the environmental impact assessment for the reclaimed land was done in the same year and got it approved by CCD. 2016, the landscape master plan was developed by AECOM, Singapore. And 2017, the master plan that was prepared by CHEC was revised a little bit and completed by Jurong, Singapore. And on the same year, considering the additional changes, an environmental impact assessment was done for the upcoming development of the project. Now, earlier, EIA was done for the reclamation only. Then the second EIA was done for the upcoming development, all the buildings and landscape areas, everything. And in 2018, the development control regulations were prepared by Jurong and Atkins. Now, that is how it came to the current stage. Now, as we know, the location is an important factor for any development. Now, the project is located, the reclaimed site is located here, which is just at the center of the commercial capital of Sri Lanka. And also it is lined with the administrative capital, and there are a lot of potential developments in future. So it is located at the kind of a very strategic location. The planning process went with this underlying design principle. Number one, the shape of the land. Now, with the Colombo port development, there was a void created in this segment. So the reclamation came up with the idea of completing the void, which makes a complete circle. Actually, it's not a kind of a perfect circle, but the idea is to fill the void. And there are planning strategies to keep the harmony between old city and new city. So the public activities, the history, culture, everything should be harmonized. So that was considered in the master planning process. And connecting the greens. Now, the green areas, public areas in Port City are planned to be well connected to the current and upcoming public areas in current Port City, current Colombo City. And the structure, this is main spine of the Port City, and it is planned to concentrate all the developments towards these centers and distribute all services equally among entire project area. And based considering all these things, this land segment was subdivided, planning to introduce different types of development activities. Now, with that analysis, we came up with the idea of having 5 districts based on the prominent activities that we are expected to have in each of these districts. We have financial district, we have marina district, island living district, mainly focused on residential activities, Central Park living, and international island district. All these districts are connected with green belts and parks and a transport corridor. Now, the special form of Port City was, it was planned to have a kind of a most dense area towards land sides and make it scattered as we are moving towards the ocean side, this residential area. To support that, the FARs, building heights were designed, and this is the skyline that we are expecting to have once the project is completed. The spatial form, again, it was not just about the skylines. The density, the plot ratios, everything considered to make sure that the natural ventilation and other important factors are to be there once the project is completed. Of course, it's a dense area, but still with these regulations, we are trying to make sure that the natural ventilation, lighting, everything would be adequately provided to each and every private plot plus public areas. And this is one of the important feature in Port City. We are giving prominence to these pedestrian and cyclists in this entire network of spaces. Of course, there are wide roads, there are these train tracks, there are so many things, but still, if you pay more attention, we can see all these public areas, public parks are well connected. And there's a clear hierarchy on central parks, local parks, and connecting corridors. And there are enough space for pedestrians. Actually, within Port City, reaching from one place to another would be much easier if someone walk or take a cycle ride than taking a train or a bus or taxi or some other vehicle. But we are giving the required weight to the road transportation as well. But those road networks was designed based on the required hierarchy to maintain the appropriate hierarchy. You can see these are the 2 main points that Port City would be connecting to Colombo City. And this is the main boulevard that connects the entire Port City, the spine that I explained before. And this boulevard is connected with the secondary roads, and that is connected, those secondary roads are connected with collector roads. If you take this, if you look at this cross section, you can see, of course, we are giving enough space for the vehicles, but still we are keeping provision for pedestrians and cyclists along these roads. Now, on top of that, there will be a light rail transit loop that is supposed to be connected to the main light rail network. The positioning of these 5 stations, light rail stations, was strategically considered to serve entire port city equally. Now, if you measure the distance from these LRT stations, you can see more than 85% of people could reach an LRT station within 400 meters. Now, those features are found in the public spaces. But when it comes to private spaces, again, there are additional regulations and guidelines to make sure now private spaces are compatible with the outside of public spaces. And you can see this is the setback plan. There are setbacks of 0 meter setbacks up to 20 meter setback. Now, 0 meter setback is the developer should bring the development right to the edge of the private plot. Now, it is a mandatory thing. The idea is to make that activities in the plot interactive with the pedestrians. And the biggest one is 20 meter setback. Now, again, the developers, those are investing on these 6 or 8 plots. They have to provide the land for public space. This entire 20 meter setback should be open for public and should be maintained by private developers. This active edges is coming with this 0 meter setback regulation. Now, the idea of this these active edges is the developments, those are coming towards the plot boundary, they have to provide the activities, those can generate public interactions. Now, those developments cannot just shut the development from the public. They have to open it up. They have to put the activities, those can interact with pedestrians. The idea is to keep these areas live throughout the day. Then the plot access. Each and every plot, we have predetermined location to put the gates and access. So actually, it's not kind of pinpoint location, but we are giving a range considering the requirement for keeping a smooth traffic movement and minimize the disturbance to pedestrians and cyclists. These are the pedestrian private spaces. In addition to the spaces that I mentioned before, these 20 meter setback, there are other spaces, other edges, those developers should provide safe pedestrian passages. Now, for example, these orange color lines, along these lines, the developer should provide a covered arcade for pedestrians. And these yellow color lines represent the mandatory through block movements. The developer should provide a through block passage for the pedestrians throughout the day. And these blue dots, they represent the mandatory public spaces. In those spots, the developer should provide minimum of 1,000 square meters of public open space, and they have to maintain that. So all these things are complementing the public spaces, those are mentioned before. Okay, now this is the plan of pedestrian links. We have these at-grade pedestrian corridors. To support them, the developer should provide underground pedestrian links along these lines because this is the financial district that will be kind of really crowded. So to encourage pedestrian movement, the developers should provide this underground pedestrian link. And there are 5 LRT stations. The developers should provide the overhead pedestrian crossings. Those are connected, supposed to be connected to the LRT stations. Okay, now when it comes to utilities, the utilities demands are already estimated based on the type of activities those are coming to the port city for each and every plot, and the density that we are expecting to have each and every plot. So the developers should limit their designs to these numbers, and all those utilities are provided right to the edge of the plot. So there will be no diggings, no new lines, everything is provided right to the edge of the plot. The developers just need to connect their systems to the provided lines. This is electricity, power distribution network. We are getting power from this CB substation, and we'll be having 2 substations inside Port City, and all these lines are drawn just edge of the each and every plot. This is the potable water network. There will be 2 reservoirs to keep the CB lines are connected to these 2 reservoirs. From here, it will be distributed to Port City, the other plots of Port City. Wastewater network. Wastewater will be pumped to the Colombo system, Colombo wastewater system. Stormwater network and telecommunication. Now, all those utility lines, those are not just buried. They are laid inside tunnels and trenches. Now, there will be a main utility tunnel along the main boulevard that is this big. It's like a kind of half of this hall. And you can see all the power and water lines are distributed through there. Now, all these utilities, public spaces, everything are integrated with the building management information system that will be helpful in managing those services in future. Actually, the plan is to connect this system with building application process as well. Landscaping, as I mentioned before, we have rich network of public landscape areas, and those areas will be furnished with furniture and Wi-Fi services, everything. And public areas, again, the developers have to do the landscaping according to the regulations that we are given. They are given. Sustainability, it's a kind of a main thing that is discussed. Now, most of sustainability targets are planned to be achieved through the green building certifications. All these plots are required to take a green building certification, and on top of that, there's a kind of very high requirement of providing landscape areas within the plots. It is around 40–50% of plot area. And in addition to those things, we are encouraging the developers for the commitments above the mandatory landscaping certifications. For example, these gray color plots, they have to just take a green building certification, and these yellow color plots, they have to get the second highest green building certification. In case if they get the top green building certification, they will be awarded with additional GFAs, additional development rights. Okay, that is the part that is related to the urban planning, which I believe you have seen before, and you are very well, I mean, you understand it very well. But now the part that is we were waiting for, it's the marketing part. Now, even though it doesn't matter how good the urban plan is, it has to be bring to the ground. It has to be implemented. So I would like to invite my colleague, Ms. Hemantha Jayasundara, to continue the presentation. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Port City Colombo, I would like to express my delight in having the opportunity to be a part of the 40th anniversary celebrations of the Institute of Town Planners of Sri Lanka. I thank my colleague, Mr. Aruna Bandara, for his excellent showcasing of the master plan for Port City, this new city, this new extension to the city of Colombo rising from the sea. In my address to you, I hope to provide you with an insight into the Port City concept and an overview of our thinking on how we plan to showcase this master plan city to the world. By positioning Port City as a multi-services hub, not only ideally positioned connecting between the East and the West, but also positioned as a gateway to the second largest market in the world, as well as the most ideal location in South Asia to live, work, and play in a resort-styled environment within a busy business network. So diving into the vision that is to be realized, we ask the question, what are the strengths Sri Lanka already enjoys, and how does Port City serve to leverage on these strengths and capabilities? Let's take a look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has historically enjoyed a key strategic advantage due to its geographic position in the center of crossroads connecting the East and the West. We are located in a maritime superhighway, with Colombo Port being ranked as the 22nd busiest port in the world. Leveraging on its strengths, Sri Lanka has the potential to serve as a bridge connecting Asian superpowers. Port City brings to the table a brand new state-of-the-art city built on world-class infrastructure, supported by investor-friendly legal and regulatory framework and efficient administrative practices, providing a special enclave with the Port City's multi-services special economic zone for the country to capitalize on its current strengths and attract regional as well as global businesses. In addressing this risk, we are looking at leveraging on the country's well-established reputation as a destination for tourism by the development of the areas that will increase the right footfall into Port City. Parallel to this, we are also currently working with one of the top 4 global consulting firms to help position us in attracting global service sector companies and anchors to establish their businesses within the Port City's special economic zone. A thriving, vibrant commercial hub coupled with the amenities, facilities, and so well articulated the ambience that Port City will provide, we believe together will drive the demand for residential property. On attracting investment into Port City, we have 2 key areas of focus in terms of our investors. Let's take a look at what we refer to as primary investors. These are investors who are looking at investing in the land parcels within Port City and the ensuing vertical developments. These would consist of real estate developers and financial investors looking at real estate specific investments for exposure in the real estate space. Based on the many conversations we have had with potential investor groups and stakeholders, there are 3 key risk areas that emerge: development risk, territory risk, and last but not least, demand risk. Who is going to absorb all this real estate that is envisaged to be built? 6.3 million square meters in total, to be exact. Development risk is an inherent risk with all real estate developments. Territory risk to some extent is addressed through the Port City Economic Commission Framework Law. The Colombo Port City Commission Act that was enacted and legislated last year, which through parliamentary approval provides within the enclave of Port City strong investment protection and ease of doing business to any investor. This risk will be further mitigated through the regulatory framework which is being put in place in consultation with international consultants and experts with a view of incorporating global best practices and standards. Finally, in addressing demand risk, the key to its success in attracting large-scale developers and investors and stakeholders. As mentioned earlier, in addressing this risk, we have engaged one of the top 4 global consulting firms to assist in starting a dialogue with global anchors, global services sector companies, and driving them to establish their presence within this enclave of Port City. And I must say, certain sectors such as the ICT sector is showing great promise and maybe the lowest hanging fruit in attracting these companies to establish within Port City. So in realizing the strategic rollout of the project, the very first developments that you would see in operation would be the Marina Hotel and the Colombo International Financial Center Phase 1. The commencement of operations of the first ever luxury marina in Sri Lanka at this location would open an avenue for a new breed of high spending ultra high net worth individuals and high net worth individuals who will have the capacity to become potential investors and give rise to Colombo city tourism and draw in the right audience and high spenders with the capacity to invest not only within Port City, but also in other areas of interest. So the spillover effect that will benefit, will not only benefit Port City, but will certainly benefit the country as a whole. Furthermore, the establishment of a duty-free downtown facility expected to open within the year will contribute to increased city tourism within Colombo. Following the development of the Marina and the Marina Hotel, we would see the opening of the Colombo International Financial Center Phase 1, as I mentioned. This would be the first mixed-use development with 480,000 square feet of prime A-grade office space, 180,000 square feet of retail space, and approximately 800 residential units. We have also prioritized the development of key social infrastructure projects within the city, namely the Exhibition and Convention Center, the International School, International Healthcare Facility. Once in operations, these elements will go on to complete the value proposition within Port City. Other strategic developments include the development of the entertainment and theme resort, an exclusive villa plot, and resort-style hospitality parcel, as well as an iconic hotel parcel, which is also within our immediate rollout plan. In realizing the above, to date, we have secured investment for 6 parcels of land, 5 of which are within the Marina precinct, and the Colombo International Financial Center Phase 1 land parcel is within the financial district. Through a well-planned PR campaign using the best networked media channels, coupled with the best network investor and stakeholder engagement channels, and with the support of the Port City Economic Commission, we are confident that we would be able, that we would be well positioned and well placed to attract investment into Port City Colombo. I think in line with the theme of the conference, we are embracing the future with confidence with regards to Port City. And with that note, I would not take too much of your time because I think Aruna had done an excellent job in showcasing the master plan. And I have attempted to provide a brief overview of how we plan to immediately roll out Port City and how we plan to attract investment into Port City. And with that note, I conclude my presentation to you. The success of this landmark project providing tremendous opportunity to the country, is reliant on many parallel verticals and the successful execution, above all these strategies and plans. But I think the most critical would be the unwavering commitment and the will the leadership of the project demonstrates towards the success and towards the realization of the vision of developing the state-of-the-art city or this world-class city for South Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Planner Aruna Bandara, Manager in Urban Planning, CHEC Port City, Colombo, Private Limited, and Ms. Yamuna Jayaratna, Director, Sales and Marketing from CHEC Port City, Private Limited, for your valuable session. Next, we would like to move on to another important segment of today's event. And now we would like to announce the arrival of the chief guest of the 40th anniversary celebration event of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. We would like to welcome the chief guest, Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness. Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, we warmly welcome you to the 40th anniversary celebration of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Your presence here is a great value for us to celebrate this 40th anniversary, to celebrate 40 years of legacy of Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. With that, we would like to move on to another special segment of this evening.
Next, it's my honor to invite the President of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka, Planner Jayasundara, to address the gathering.
Honorable State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness, Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, past presidents, corporate members, including fellow members, and all other members of the Institute and colleagues. Being a member of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka from its inception, and having closely associated with council activities throughout, I make this speech with great pleasure. Let me first remember everyone, the members and non-members who contributed in various ways to make our institute its present state. I make particular reference to late Professor Neville Gunaratna, Vidyajothi, Emeritus Professor Dr. Willie Mendis, Planner N.D. Dixon, late Planner Tissa Bulankulame, late Planner Neil Karunaratna, Planner Professor Ashton Perra, Planner K.D. Fernando, and Planner L.D. Dickman. I extend my heartiest appreciation to all past presidents, the executive councils, and all those who worked in standing committees for guiding, shaping, and sustaining the Institute since its inception with their voluntary commitments. During the past 40 years, the role of cities and the role of town planners has changed dramatically. Therefore, we need to understand the potential challenges that the town planners will have to face in the future. The impacts of global incidents such as the corona pandemic and wars among nations have distorted the economies of independent nations drastically. Natural disasters have become a part of day-to-day life. Although the contribution of small island nations like Sri Lanka to climate change is the least, they are the worst affected. Technological advancements such as 3D printing, the ITC industry have been so vibrant to reshape local economies beyond expectations. Competitiveness has become governing force to attract foreign direct investments. The significance of cities for national economic development have been rising radically, all of which require reshaping the town planning profession radically. Our nation is currently undergoing an economic crisis. It is our duty to contribute from the urban planning processes to overcome the crisis. At every possible platform, innovative strategic planning can enable the urban business environment to thrive for such directions. The presence of the Institute at global, national, regional, and local levels is needed to guide the nation's development efforts. Thus, at this significant event, the 40th anniversary celebrations of the Institute, I wish that the town planners shall make committed efforts to reorient the role of town planner to guide the future of our nation, as we are responsible for directing the spatial distribution of investment to achieve national development goals. Honorable State Minister, we have a long way to get the town planning service minute approved. Currently, the service minute is in the process of submitting to the Cabinet of Ministers for its approval. Once approved, it will open up job opportunities for town planners at national, regional, and local levels. One of the serious issues that urban development undergoes currently is absence of town planners in local authorities. Approval of the service minute will resolve that issue, creating a momentum in urban development activities in Sri Lanka. The Ministry of Public Services, provincial councils, and local government has been very positive in processing our submission on behalf of the Institute. I kindly seek the assistance of Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, State Minister of Urban Development, to assist us in getting the cabinet approval, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Planner Devshriyani Jayasundara, the President of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Next in agenda, we are ready to introduce the launch of the Coffee Table Book of Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka 2022. To introduce the Coffee Table Book, we would like to invite Planner Dr. Chetika Abenayaka.
The Chief Guest, distinguished guests, the President of ITPSL and the Executive Council, fellow members, corporate members, and associate members. With due respect to all of you, let me have the privilege of citing the historic moment of launching the 40th anniversary commemorative volume of the ITPSL titled Reminiscence Unfold. Reminiscence Unfold is a collection of stories about the milestones of ITPSL as well as the planning practice of Sri Lanka, remembered by the planners. For the narration, our team had the support of a set of leading town planners who took part in the landmark planning interventions in Sri Lanka. We express our sincere gratitude to all those resource persons who dedicated their time to unfold those memories. Further, we are grateful to all past presidents of ITPSL as well as the President of Commonwealth Association of Planners for their well wishes. Our special thanks goes to Professor Trevor Butch from the Planning Institute of Australia for his contribution on the solicited paper on our theme, Facing the Future with Confidence. Along with my co-editors, Planner Dr. Upuli Pereira and Planner Chintaku Ratnasiri, I would like to acknowledge our team, Planner Manju Vidana Gamachige, Planner Hasini Atigala, Planner Jayadarini Senduran, Planner Udita Jayampath, Planner Jeevanti Samaratunga, Planner Kalpana Priyadarshani, Planner Dr. Rohana Ratnayaka, Planner Ajanta Pushpakumari, Planner George Prasanna, Planner Chatura Paliskara, Planner Malit Senaviratna, Ms. Nesha Ranavira, and Ms. Anne David for their collective effort on documenting this legacy. Considering the prevailing logistic issues, we will be launching the e-version today, and upon the favorable circumstances, we will be launching the hard printed copies in the next QGM. So with this brief remark, let me now invite the great personality who had been behind this initiation, who conceived the initial idea, who led the initiative and facilitated us throughout the process. That is none other than the President, ITPSL, Planner Devshriyani Jayasundara. Dear Madam, please proceed to the audience. I hereby announce the e-launch of the 40th anniversary commemorative volume of ITPSL, Reminiscence Unfold. Thank you very much, Madam. This book is dedicated to all town planners in Sri Lanka. This book is not only about our past, It contains deep insights on how planners can face the future with confidence. So dear ladies and gentlemen, hail the ITPSL for its prestige over 40 years, many more years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Planner Dr. Chetika Abenayaka, for launching the coffee table book of Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Next, we would like to move on to another important segment. In the beginning of 40th anniversary celebration event, Emeritus Professor Willie Mendis gave a very comprehensive explanation about the evolution of the town planning profession in Sri Lanka. So next, we would like to discuss about the future. The theme of the session is Way Forward of the Profession.
For this segment, I would like to invite another renowned lecturer and a trainer in urban planning sector who has demonstrated over 30 years experience in private, public and international institutions. He is none other than the past president of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Planner Hemantha Jayasundara. This invitation is for you.
Thank you for the introduction, Honorable Minister, President and the Council, members of the Institute and dear colleagues. That's the theme given to me for today's submission. Town planning profession, the way forward. Facing the future with confidence. It's a timely theme, but of course it's very controversial because many members will have different ideas and views depending on their understanding and their comprehensiveness. But everyone needs to be innovative because of the radical changes that has been happening in the urban sector and the profession. It also needs continuous efforts to define, redefine, and reshape the profession. Of course, it is challenging. Cities have become engines today, and it can contribute a lot to the national economy, so it is challenging. We need to understand that. The way the cities are changing, it is definitely futuristic. Finally, you will understand we need to be having collaborative efforts to put the whole things together to make it an important sector in the national economy. So it is challenging. However, it is challenging. Everyone will agree with me on the statistics presented on this slide. There exists a very strong and positive relationship between the rate of urbanization and per capita income. Higher the urbanization rate, greater the per capita income. A very strong relationship. This is the very same reason as to why currently cities are considered to be engines of national economic development compared to what it played in the past, just providing services. The submission is further reinforced by the statistics provided by the World Bank. Urban areas in developing countries, low-income countries, provide 55% to the national economy, which is 73% by middle-income countries, and high-income countries, it is as high as 85%. However, if you leave the urban settlements to grow the way it grows naturally, you are not able to get or accrue the benefits of urbanization. This is where we need to have the intervention of town planners. What kind of intervention we are talking about? Not just providing traditional way of urban planning, but providing strategic urban planning. Many people define a strategic plan differently. Of course, you will have your own different view, but I do define it differently, and I have been advocating this for the last almost 30-40 years. How do I advocate? Planning a city similar to the private sector plans a business. What does that mean? If you put the whole spectrum of private sector business planning into a nutshell, it has just 3 elements: technology, design, and brand name. When you translate it to urban planning, technology means strategic planning. That is what you do right now. And more than that, how to make our cities competitive. 2, I have highlighted exploit the benefit of exponential increase in the global trade. That is how we need to showcase our cities to make it strategic. It's a lot more to discuss, but this is not the time to discuss the strategies. Second, design. When it is translated to urban planning, it is urban design. Urban design here, I do not define just an instrument to integrate spatial planning with nature. Is more than that. It is primarily a spatial distribution of investment to achieve what is highlighted over there. Third is city branding. Branding of a good or services, when it comes to cities, branding a city. Let me give you a good example. It's not simply the way that we just provide the vision for a development path. No, that is not the way. Just let me give you a small example. If I consider Colombo as Colombo urban area, we have 4 universities: Moratuwa, Japura, Colombo, Kelaniya. Although under international branding, they fall much below the branding, the graduates of all these 4 universities play extremely competitively well in the global market, even working in NASA and some of the blue chip companies in the world. If we understand the opportunities provided under the third industrial revolution, when I say we, is urban planners and whole lots of other professionals, we will orient these 4 universities to cater to the demand created in that global market. If you work on that, we can easily brand Colombo as the city of intelligence. That is enough for us to get international high-end investors to Colombo. We don't need to beg, we don't need to go behind them. The branding of city of intelligence to create that level of graduates will itself enough for us to attract so much of investment to Colombo, not just investments, high-end investments. So this is how I advocate strategic planning. We pass through 3 stages. Stage 1, we have passed through long ago. Now we are in stage 2, that is competitive advantage level. Unfortunately, I am compelled to brand Sri Lanka as the primary level of competitive advantage. We have a lot more to go. If you make our cities competitive, there are a lot more to discuss about it. This is not the time for me to do it due to time constraints. And immediately we have to jump towards collaborative partnerships. That is the future of all cities for us to do. Of course, at the beginning, we need to discuss what kind of city engine we are thinking about. Where are we now? What is the city engine that we are trying to make during the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Here, in strategic planning, what we do is to understand the gap between current and the future expectations, and to work out strategies to bridge the gap, and then allocate resources and scheduling to achieve all that. That does not need money so much. That needs committed contribution by all the professionals to make cities competitive. It is the fact, it is the theme that future lies on. For you to understand this clearly, you also need to understand the key drivers that are available in the global market. It is the globalization that has been driving the urbanization. That has clearly resulted in what I've highlighted over there, exponential increase in global trade, exponential. During last 40, 50 years, international movement of capital has been very vibrant. What is more important for us here in Asia is that the center of gravity of the world economy is moving towards developing world from developed, particularly towards Asia. We are in Asia. Have you understood the significance of this movement of gravity towards our development? It is the job of planners. Technological advancements, I'm not going to elaborate on more, but environmental concerns, please do understand that has monetary value. More we create better environment, there is monetary value in it. R&D, we have been doing, but we are not contributing anything to the corporate world. Again, I have highlighted the last one, performance of medium-sized cities. I will come to that. Next, just look at this slide. What is on the left? This is the performance during from 2000 to 2015, 15 years. Take the first graph. We Sri Lanka, we have experienced minus 25. The change of exports of goods, minus 25. Look at the other chart. We have gained during this 15 years, we have gained in terms of exporting services. We are gained by 115%, huge. It is the urban sector that provides the opportunities for growth of services. Let me take a few more examples and indicators for you to understand this competitiveness clearly. This is the latest information about the competitiveness. Look at what is highlighted over there in yellow. The first topmost countries which are the most competitive in the world, except the USA, all the other countries are small countries, much smaller than Sri Lanka in population size. So it does not mean the size of your country does not have anything. Provided you make the country competitive, investment flows, we should not be beggars. Unfortunately, we are further down. Our competitiveness ranking for 2019 is just 84. What is the next engine we are thinking about? It looks to me that we are in Morris Minor. If you want to go to Toyota Corolla, at least we have to think of Malaysia 27. What is the gap between these two? But for you to understand the gap, you need to understand the indexes, the frameworks. There are 12 pillars that are used to measure the competitiveness. But 12 measures, every pillar has a large number of indicators. We need to understand each and every indicator, the gap, and bridge the gap, for which we need to lay strategies. For an example, take Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index. We are where? Number 64, further down. More importantly, we were at 63, 2015, 17, we came down further to 64. Today, 2019, we further came down to 77. Look at that one, we are going down. Our neighbor is going up, we are going down. Understand, we have 15 indicators to measure the competitiveness in the travel and tourism industry. You may think, okay, we are town planners, why the hell we are worried about that? Look at each indicator, there are 15 indicators. Safety and security, aren't we responsible for that? Town planners working in your cities. Health and hygiene, aren't we responsible for that? Human resources, aren't we responsible? Price competitiveness, tourism service infrastructure, natural resources management, you land use planners, aren't you responsible for that? Cultural and resources and business travel, aren't you responsible for that? So you will understand how significant the role of town planners in the whole spectrum of competitiveness. So we are there, number 77, we are holding number 77 level. After the establishment of peace in Sri Lanka, we increased our tourist arrival continuously, going up to 2.1 million. But check other countries, Malaysia is having 26 million and Thailand 36 million. What should be our next competitiveness? Fortunately, Tourism Development Authority had a very interesting strategic plan, one of the best, I would say, but unfortunate things happen, but this is not in practice. But we need to put our efforts also to assist these institutions to implement these plans. Let me take another example. This is Corruption Perception Index. Where are we? Number 102, very low level of status. Take the top countries, the best countries without having corruption. All 6 countries, much smaller than Sri Lanka in terms of population size and economic size. That is how the competitiveness is showcased. We need to have long journey to overcome this. The significance of this is this. This is an interactive map. What does it do? The investors can just 1 second to get it onto a computer, and you go and click on any of the countries. any of the countries, you click, immediately it will give you a pull down table. Table will give you all kinds of corruptions in that country. So what? Investors will go, they don't need to have any consultants, just click on the map, he will decide whether to invest in this country or not. Of course, low-end investors, those who are into money laundering, they will choose a country having high level of corruption because they can add more to the country until the country becomes collapsed and complete destruction. So here, what is the way forward? You need to have high level of professionalism, practice what you learned at the university. You need to practice your ethics that you have been learning. Of course, online applications is a very effective instrument to do away with corruption. Once you establish high level of professionalism, ethics in your own institutions, and you will pass it on to other institutions, if you work on a strategy and schedule, in just 3-4 years, we can break the whole corruption chain in Sri Lanka among professionals, and that will go to high level, and Sri Lanka can be one of the most competitive countries in the world. You also need to admire, my experience, some of the local institutions which have created examples, particularly district officers, AGS officers, ones of the best. How do they perform? Why not other institutions in Sri Lanka? This pollution index. Fortunately, we are better than our neighbors. One of the key reasons is we don't have manufacturing industries in our cities. How do we showcase this? If we are better, we need to showcase them that, okay, we are better, please come to our country. Without begging, showcase. Let me give an example. Colombo Municipal Council has been working on an interesting theme, Colombo Blue Waters. Working on 2 projects to upgrade the sewerage system of the city of Colombo so that we will have one of the most advanced sewerage systems in the city of Colombo, and all the water bodies in Colombo will become blue. You can showcase that itself to the whole world because there are many investors. You don't need to ask them to come and invest. The moment you make the city so clean, they will just jump and come. However, do you think Colombo Municipal Council can do it alone? They can never do it. The drainage division needs to have 35 engineers. They only have 50. They can never. This is where the intervention of town planners are required to work with them to make it reality. 5 years, you can make Colombo blue. This is one of the maps that I wanted to show you, which I indicated right at the beginning. The McKinsey Global Institute, very interesting. They showcase the fact that by year 2025, 40% of the global economy will be governed by middleweight cities. Colombo falls into middleweight cities. Currently, there are 600 cities that govern the global economy. Over the next 15 years, it is going to completely change. How does it change? How is it going to change? Currently, the 600 cities, by 2007, the 600 cities was responsible for 50% of the global growth. What they are predicting is, by 2025, there will be new 136 cities getting into 600. What happens? Equal number of cities will drop off, all from developed countries. And these 136 cities from developing countries, including Sri Lanka. Of these 136 new cities that are going to come into the 600 global city network, 100 will come from China, 13 from India, and 8 from Latin America. And still there will be 15 left. Can our planners getting together with other professionals can make sure that out of 15 cities, at least we can work on 3 cities to get into Sri Lanka? 3. That will change the whole economy. That does not need money. That does not need investments that we see. That needs commitment to make our cities competitive. That is the theme and that is the mantra. Let me take you to another interesting thing that you all are happy to hear. What is presented here is the vicious circle of poverty. That is not the slide that I want to show you. You are all familiar with that. I was working on a vicious circle of urban investment, but it's too big. I am unable to present it on the screen. Therefore, I just put this on the screen just to highlight what I am going to talking about. What happens in our cities? You all are working in our cities. Most of our cities are poor in financial, technical, planning, and HR. They are dependent on government, central government, provincial government, and also many other projects that are coming from various other institutions. Since they are poor in all these aspects, they are low productive. That does mean they are not in a position to invest in capital investment and even to maintain existing infrastructure. Thus, they are unable to collect the due income from others because people are not willing to pay because they are not getting the service. What happened? It further goes down to the extent that they are unable to make their investment worthwhile because there's no investment. Again, they are going to be at low level, low productivity. It goes on like a vicious cycle. How do you break it? One of the key issues we have is currently spatial planning institutions are completely departed from the financial planning institutions. There is only one period in the history, for a very short period, both were put under one ministry. After that was departed. So you planners will need to work with local authorities with their budgetary provisions and also other financing instruments to make sure that there will be adequate finances available in the urban sector. One of the key institutions, Sri Lanka Institute of Local Governance, of course, they have been doing a significant role to, in terms of training and capacity building to make our cities competitive. Of course, they can't do it alone. This is where UDA, NPPD, and all other institutions should work together and work with them collaboratively to make our cities competitive. Okay, let me take towards this slide, what is written there in black. They are said to be the traditional financing tools available for local authorities. Very traditional. Does that mean we have to leave out? No. These traditional sources of income can be re-engineered to make them some of the most important, which we are right now doing at the Colombo Municipal Council. Colombo Municipal Council, Engineer Anand is here. When currently they were earning only 60 million from drainage division, wastewater. So when we were discussing, okay, let's develop a business plan. What the hell you are talking about? How can we do business with wastewater? But when we develop a financial plan, it came out to be 1,200 million per annum. We got the council approval for two proposals. They are now being implemented. Now they are finalizing the business plan to make 1,200 million per annum. That is necessary to put the sewerage system of the city of Colombo in order. This is what our planners need to work with other local authorities. What is highlighted in blue are the next generation investment tools. Urban regeneration, of course, UDA is doing it. And all others, including value capture, municipal bonds, I'm not going to give you a detailed account of that. We are not practicing. We need to practice them, which does not need money, which needs only your interventions. Moreover, what is highlighted on this side in green is the most significant. Making cities enabling business environment, making cities for enabling financing environment. How do you do it? Creating cities competitive. If governance, creating fiscal policies. When I could remember this, very sad to say because my heart breaks when I talk about this. When I was in the UDA, Plnr Tilaka Galkatu and I, we planned and implemented the first information technology park in Sri Lanka in Malabo. When we did this, we both had to have enormous difficulties to put this through. None of the 5 ministries responsible, I'm sorry, due to ethical reasons, I'm not going to mention them, did not even understand the significance of IT investment in Sri Lanka. One of the the most important ministries, Secretary issued a letter written by one of the top class economists. Sri Lanka does not have Sri Lanka does not have demand for IT. Sri Lanka has enough IT infrastructure, so we don't need to support. It was hard for Tilaka and I to put together this, and with very hard work, we got the cabinet approval to introduce at least some fiscal incentives for land for investors. The first investor we got down, MIT, who was invited by Karnataka Chief Minister to come to India, they will provide everything free. When the first investor, MIT, when we got down to Malawi, they produced the fastest financial transaction platform in the world and got listed in NASDAQ, US. They, just because of that, they got the contract from the London Stock Exchange to automate London Stock Exchange to fast track their financial transaction. By the time I left the UD, we had 22 investors, including one of the leading IT education companies in Sri Lanka, Informatics. Unfortunately, some institutions withdrew those fiscal incentives. So I do not know what happened to those 21 institutions left behind. Incubators. We have been advocating for last almost 30 years how to create incubators for making facilities available for startups. When I make this presentation here, of course, this was presented adequately by two presenters before. Don't misinterpret my intention here. I am not a trader here. However, those who are in my age can remember as far back as early 1980s, Upali Vijayawardena, one of our business tycoons who had global presence, started planning a similar project, Port City project, 40 years ago, not in the ocean, but in land mass, in area called GCC, Greater Colombo Economic Commission, now which is said to be BOI. He even planned to introduce a global currency within the zone. It's not new. Had that been implemented in early 1980s, Sri Lanka is today would have been completely different country. Unfortunately, he disappeared without even leaving a trace. So, branding a city for what? So what does it do? What does Port City do here? It's branding a city for offshore businesses, showcasing it for international investors, and creating a globally competitive city with competitive infrastructure. There have been 40 years old requirements, felt needs. So shouldn't we support that? Shouldn't planners work with Port City investors, developers to fast track the development to achieve the schedule? Moreover, please do understand what else you can do, planners. To do that, you need to understand the drawbacks of our competitors. Who are the competitors, as these Port City developers say? Dubai, Singapore, they are competitors. What do they don't have? They do not have recreation facilities that we have. So investors, they just jump out of Singapore, just jump out of Dubai in search of recreation facilities outside. Here we have that in abundance. So it is your duty to plan your other cities and regions to make sure that we will have everything in one just single country. And that can make the Port City competitive to Dubai and Singapore, more than they and we expect. Something we have been advocating for a long time, but no hearings, urban agriculture. This is just I took last week. An agriculture project. This is widespread in Sri Lanka now, growing very fast. Here it is Aturugiriya. On Colombo, Aturugiriya main road, 5 perches. A polytunnel, the income is 50,000 rupees per week. That does mean 200,000 rupees per month. If you construct a 2-story building on the same plot, how much you can earn on rent? 25,000, and leaving the entire upper floor vacant forever. So please do understand the significance of urban agriculture in the current day urban planning, strategic urban planning. If I focus more on urban agriculture, you will not understand and you will discard, but you will understand and you will appreciate it if I give an example from Singapore. That is how we are used to. Singapore is 100% dependent on imported food. They are dependent. They realized it that the dependence on imported food will create a food security issue, health issue, and also disaster related issue. So they worked on a plan. What is the plan? Singapore 30 by 30. What does that mean? By 2030, Singapore will produce 30% of their food requirement. Where do they do? Do they have land? Rooftops, car parks tops. So please do remember how best we can accommodate in an urban system to make it much more competitive and also addressing food security issues. Yes, we are in a crisis now. So there are many ways rather than shouting that we have crisis. There are many ways that we can get rid of it. This is something I show particularly for the research work of the young planners. We own so much of land in the ocean, but when we have more resource, it's a strength. Unfortunately, more resource is a curse. I am adequately convinced that 30-year-long war in Sri Lanka was planned, fabricated, designed, implemented, and advocated by outsourced forces who knew what was there inside the ocean. Unfortunately, we did not know because we don't have technology and we don't have enough money to invest in it. For you to understand very clearly, you need to know what happened there in East Timor. How the international so-called community destabilized entire Indonesia and put entire Indonesia into turmoil, creating a situation that we are facing today. You also need to at least read one of this book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. How the countries with so much of resources were put to a drain. And the writer, John Perkins himself, is a hitman. So my kind request from the young planners, particularly because they have so much of interest into new technology, please work with other professionals, geologists, those who are into oceanography. See what do we have in our ocean, how best we can relate that to our economic development. It's another interesting one related to competitiveness. This article was published on 1st October 2007, more than 25 years ago. What does it say? It's asking a question, who owns the Arctic? We all think we own the Arctic. But when you closely look at those flags, you will understand there someone has come to claim for the ownership. This magazine very clearly put forward some measures indicating how the Arctic ice cap started shrinking gradually. It showcased who are the countries who are trying to get the ownership. Why? So much of natural resources under this. They need to have answer. So what happens if ice caps are gone? We will be affected. Millions of people will die. Half of Sri Lanka will go underwater. Never mind. That's okay, provided those countries will have access to resources. Furthermore, if ice caps are gone, it will create a sea route much shorter than what they have to connect east from the west. It's much shorter, much cheaper for them. So please do understand, natural disasters are going to be day-to-day experience that we are going to face, primarily because there are some rich countries who are promoting global warming. Until such time, the predictions of Arthur C. Clarke come to a reality. Of course, most of his predictions have come real. His prediction of the efficient use of solar energy is going to be in the near future. Once it is done, the whole global warming will reverse back, so we will have a future. But until such time, what are we going to do? All predictions for Sri Lanka, sea level will rise. Wet areas will be wetter and dry areas will be drier. What are the results? We will be experiencing more landslides, earth slips, more floods, droughts. But fortunately, National Physical Planning Department, when Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president, put together this National Physical Plan, one of the best plans ever produced by town plans in Sri Lanka. It has clearly understood the issue that we are going to face in the near future. Excellent plan. to conserve central hills, to capture the excess water and capture the water and retain the water in the central hills and gradual release towards 103 rivers, so that transbasin diversion of water from wet areas to dry areas much easy, and we can be very happy that we are going to address the impact of global warming. During the last government, the plan was changed again. Currently, the plan is it's been changed again. However, the fundamentals are kept intact. Unfortunately, we are not implementing. Plan done, not implemented. So why? This is another plan. The NPPD came out primarily depending on the information given by the National NBRO on disasters to submerge the development in Ua and in Badula district and bring in the level more towards Mondragala for the benefits of both regions. We never practice it. So we need to have collaborative advocacy and integrated with other institutions. And we can easily connect all these events towards with the global economy. For an example, if you move away the development in the red area and yellow area, they are the areas with one of the highest biodiversities in Sri Lanka, more scenic and more strategic and more adventurous. One of the best areas in the world for tourism, which is now being devastated. Why not we implement? I'm not going to discuss more on the third industrial revolution, which is nicknamed GLOCAL, that is globalization and localization. The results of third industrial revolution is the large cities, large manufacturing cities will cease to exist. Manufacturing will happen at our doorstep, primarily due to the impact of 3D printing, CAD/CAM, ICT, AI is going to be a reality. It is now happening. So are we ready to capture the benefit of third industrial revolution to get back the manufacturing at our doorstep? To do that, we have to change our mindset. Currently, we are physical planning orientation people. How best we can merge physical planning aspects in the virtual environment. That is the challenge that town planners are going to face in the near future. It is not just making cities smart cities, it's more than that. It's merging and again creating cities competitive in the global market. Don't think we are poor. We are rich because we have human resources to make our cities completely different to make global cities. I think I am taking more time, so I am compelled to rush through. Let me cite a few more important things under your favored theme. Professor Willie Mendis put forward the theory, principle of Colombo Trincomalee Economic Corridor as far back as 40 years in 1980s. What happened? The town planning professionals were never able to put this across. It only remained as a plan there. Never. Had Professor Willie Mendis' plan, Colombo Trincomalee Growth Corridor was put into effect, today Sri Lanka would have been a completely different country. 3 years ago, under the Minister of Finance and Planning, ADB came in and introduced the same thing. I was shocked. I was in the meeting, I was shocked. And what Professor Willie Mendis put forward 40 years ago was modern, just 3 years before, to ADB and Finance Ministry. I was so shocked, and then I wrote an article to Chamber of Construction Industry magazine, Professor Willie Mendis and Colombo Trincomalee Economic Corridor. I just wanted to express how bad we are in converting our thinking into practice. National Physical Plan, I explained, we are not putting them into practice. Malabe IT Park, I told you before, when I led Berale Conservation Project, Planner Dayanand and I, we had a theme, Blue Waters Business Triangle. University of Moratuwa Town Planning Department, we get at least a minimum of 50 graduates per year. Definitely at least 20% of the research work they do must be interesting. must be worthwhile to integrate with the corporate sector. What is happening? Whether they are putting them forward, are they advocating? We need to do a lot more to face the future. I'm sorry, I don't know whether I have overdosed you. If I do, or if I've done, please apologize. But you will realize future of town planning is challenging. It's very challenging. So we need to redesign our curricula to inbuild competitiveness and governance into the system. Part 3 program should be very much focused towards skill development. We also need to change our CPD program to focus more on challenges and practicing new strategies. And also, please make sure that we need to collaborate extensively with all other professionals and sectors to make sure that our cities will work well. Finally, let me put forward this slide. These are the skills that any professional should develop. We have 6 skills under foundational literacies and 4 under competencies and a rest under character qualities. Whatever the academic background you get from universities, if you don't get these skills, you will not be able to make a difference. You will not be able to make a change, and you will not be able to make our cities competitive. I think I have taken more time than scheduled. For that, I record my apology. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that thought-provoking address. Ladies and gentlemen, it was Plnr Hemantha Jayasundara, past president of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Next up, brace yourself for some cultural entertainment. Once again, please put your hands together to the dancing crew from the Sri Dance Academy.
मधुर वसंते सकर दिगंते मधुर वसंते सकर दिगंते भमरे भमरियन मोनरे मोनरियन मधुर वसंते किंगुरु किंगुरियन कुमुरु कुमुरियन मधुर वसंते मधुर 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 वसंते सलिलमताई गमनगताई चुडग चुडग मदन बसाई कविताई विपदरवाई मदकवताई सितक सितक सुरिलवना मनुलो रे मरे सरे सारे सनि सा रे मरे सरे रे म पन पम पन सरे सरे सा सले पम नि पम रे पम रे सा रे कोई तू है इत वसंत सलमुत एम हाथ दे बोले ओदा सुन निताई नो देवी ने चरणे कोई दिन नवी दिन ने अपदिहार राती समग्र राती के लिए जिया है माल सरा
वसंते सकल दिगंते मधुर वसंते सकल दिगंते मधुर मलरिया मधुर मलरिया मधुर वसंते किंदुरु किंदुरियन कुमुर कुमुरियन मधुर वसंते मधुर वसंते
Thank you very much, dance crew, for that wonderful performance. Now we have come to the most awaited session of the 40th anniversary celebration event, the inaugural award ceremony of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka 2022. The awarding applications were launched on 6th of November 2021 at the World Town Planning Day under 7 award categories. The ITPSL Honorary Award, Planning Excellence in Planning Process and Programs, Planning Excellence in Planning Project, Planning Research, Young Planner of the Year, and Emerging Planner of the Year, and finally, ITPSL Award for Industry Excellence.
Without further ado, let's look at the award categories for tonight. The evaluation of each application was conducted by a respective jury appointed by the Executive Council of the ITPSL. The jury is as follows: Plnr Surat Vikramasinghe, Plnr Dr. Lochana Gunaratna, Plnr Vellapillai, Plnr Nilanthi Ratnayaka, Plnr Anandagamage, Plnr Shriyani Aryatilaka, Plnr Krishan Sugatapala, Plnr Janaka Vijayasundara, Plnr Janaki Edirisinghe, Plnr Professor Sampath Hemakumara, Plnr Viranjan Kurukulasuriya, Plnr Dr. Nishani Vikramarachi, Plnr Pujita Ranavaka, and Plnr Prasanna Vijitunga. We would like to express our thankful gratitude towards the jury for their commitment in selecting 6 winners under 6 categories for tonight.
To present the awards, we would like to invite the awarding panel on stage. The chief guest of the 40th anniversary celebration of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness. Planner Hemantha Jayasundara, President of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka. Planner Priyani Ramaratne, Secretary of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka. Planner Krishan Sugatipala, President-elect of ITPSL. And finally, Planner Chintaka Ratnasiri, Chairman of the 40th Anniversary Organizing Committee. Please join us on stage.
So it is time for the first award, the ITPSL Award for Planning Excellence in Planning Processes and Programs. The jury has justified the reasonings for the selection of this winner. It's mentioned this winner is a development plan that demonstrated the integration of social, environmental, and economic aspects, followed with SMART goals, objectives, and programs on environmental resilience, technology with emphasis on innovation, and digitalization leading to sustainable development.
So the ITPSL Award for Planning Excellence in Planning Processes and Programs goes to Planning team of the Urban Development Authority for the preparation of Ratnapura Development Plan 2021-2023. Please give a round of applause to the planning team of Urban Development Authority. We cordially invite planner Tushani Priyanka Dialvis and team member of the planning team to receive the award. The team members as follows: Planner Sisira Manel Disanayaka, Planner Hasini Niranjana Artigala, Planner Rohini Kanti Gunatilaka, Planner Dhammika Atukorala, Planner Priyantika Hemamali Manike, Mrs. Telamburi Bambaredige Sandhya. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause to the winners of the ITPSL Award for Planning Excellence in Planning Processes and Programs.
The second award for the night, ITPSL Award for Planning Excellence in Planning Projects. The winner of this category is a project that created a pleasant environment to a local area by rehabilitating a pond for public use, which had been kept unclean for more than 30 years. The management plan prepared demonstrated the capability to guide the economic sustainability in the area, while the project has already induced a number of economic acidities to the local area. It also serves as a flood detention facility. The rehabilitation revived the local lives by aiding the natural fade-up of many antisocial behavioral activities which prevailed in the local area. This project investment that happened through the public-private partnership is exemplary. This is the selection reason by the jury.
The winner of the ITPSL Planning Excellence in Planning Project Award goes to the planning team of the Campus Private Limited for the development of Arivakulam Aqua Leisure Park. We cordially invite team leader of the project, Planner Kadampeswaram Tulesi Verman, and a team member, Planner Punaturei Piribakaran, on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause for the winner of ITPSL Award for Planning Excellence.
The third award for the day, ITPSL Award for Planning Research. According to the jury, this winning research falls into one of the most emerging. So this winning research falls onto one of the main emerging impactful areas of planning, natural hazards and resilience. It has been published in the Journal of Environmental Development Index.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winners of ITPSL Award for Planning Research, Dr. Chetika Abenayaka and Dr. Amila Buddhika Jayasinghe from University of Moratuwa.
The next award, the Young Plan of the Year. The jury statement as follows. This winner's dedication, leadership, and teamwork skills of him are well known. Starting the career as an intern urban plan, his excellence has led him to progress an executive in new business development, and later as an assistant manager in planning and project management in one of the leading real estate development companies in Sri Lanka at the younger age of his planning career. He has contributed his expertise, knowledge in diversified projects, showing competency to face the changing and diversifying environment and the ability of advising on market research in property sector. And he has continued as one of the most needed persons among the high standard professionals.
Young Planner of the Year. The Young Planner of the Year award goes to Mr. Dilan Sankalpa. The winner of Young Planner of the Year award, Mr. Dilan Sankalpa. Let's give him another round of applause.
The next award category, the Emerging Planner of the Year. The jury has mentioned his enterprising and entrepreneurial abilities within planning practice is certainly appreciated. With the establishment of his own company, he has undertaken several key planning exercises both locally and internationally during the recent past. His progress as an early planning career would certainly open up doors for the Sri Lankan planning profession to expand its borders in a big way. He had been an active participant of Young Planners Forum of ITPSL and certainly has shown dedication in uplifting the profession.
The Emerging Planner of the Year 2022. The award goes to Planner Kalampeswaram Tulesivarman, the Emerging Planner of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause to the winner of Emerging Planner of the Year Award, ITPSL Award Ceremony 2022.
Final award for the night, the ITPSL Honorary Award. Jury's appreciation. How wonderful is it to celebrate an excellent planning service to the nation. He has not merely provided long service to our country as a planner, but has done in so exemplary manner, ethically and professionally. His early planning work started with the UNDP-funded Colombo Master Plan project, functioned under the Town and Country Planning Department, at the time led by Planner Gunaratna. It is the UNDP-funded Master Plan project which led the establishment of the Urban Development Authority. Later, his extensive work continued through the Urban Development Authority and the National Physical Planning Department with the most valuable outcomes and the guidance for many young planners.
He was the Director General of National Physical Planning Department and led the delivery of the first National Physical Plan of Sri Lanka. He is a graduate of Bachelor of Science, State Management and Valuation at University of Sri Jawaharlal and possesses a multi-talented personality of high caliber and had been well versed in a variety of topics. His contribution and commitment to the planning profession is far excellent and highly appreciated. ITPSL Honorary Award. The ITPSL Honorary Award goes to Planner J.M.L. Jayasundara. On behalf of the Planner Jayasundara, we cordially invite Planner L.H. Mendis, fellow member of the ITPSL, to receive the award. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause for the winner of ITPSL Honorary Award, Planner J.M.L. Jayasundara.
Next up, in recognition of opening new dimensions to urban planning, creating a competitive global market for offshore businesses, and showcasing Sri Lanka as a destination for high-end urban business opportunities. A special token of appreciation is awarded to the CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited.
To receive this special token, we would like to invite Ms. Hemantha Jayasundara, Director Sales and Marketing, CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to the CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited, representing the CHEC Port City. Ms. Hemantha Jayasundara is receiving the token of appreciation. Thank you very much, honorable guests, for joining us in the award ceremony of the ITPSL Award Ceremony 2022. Next, we would like to invite the winner of ITPSL Honorary Award, Plnr J.M.L. Jayasundara. He will join us virtually, and he is going to deliver a speech after receiving the ITPSL Honorary Award. The platform, we are opening the platform to Plnr J.M.L. Jayasundara.
The President of the Institute of Town Planners, Madam Vidyajothi Jayasundara, Executive Committee members of ITPSL, past presidents, corporate members, associate members, student members, friends, ladies and gentlemen. My greetings to chief guest of the occasion, Honorable Nalaka Godahewa. Today, the Institute has reached a watershed moment. It's exploring and unearthing its own history of 40 long years of its plan, its past, what we did right in the past, and perhaps what we could not do right in the past. In both cases, we recognizing my services to the planners community and to the country at large by awarding the lifetime achievement is a reawakening of our own shared history. I'm proud that I was able to participate in your 40 years of work and in many capacities. And in the ITPSL itself, becoming a student member to rising to the president. I'm truly humbled by your bestowing this singular honor on me. I wondered, believe me, I wondered by this very act, Madam President and her able team have proven that you are a visionary leadership, alert and sensitive to the present day's country's catastrophic realities, but reliving our own rich past history in order to protect, create, and foster a better future for our people. City planning is a collective craft. It was performed by our team with the participation of many planners and allied professionals and ordinary supporters, some of who are present here today, some are not here. Few of them have sadly passed away. I share this lifetime achievement with all of them. That's why it is very appropriate that Mr. Chendrasiri should receive the award, not only on my behalf, but also on behalf of an entire generation of professionals who work together with us over decades. Thank you, Mr. Chendrasiri, for representing all of us in this solemn occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, I wondered why me? When my predecessors are there in the Institute with far more illustrious and remarkable careers, such as Professor Willie Mendis, Mr. N.D. Dixon, Dr. Lochana Gunaratna, Dr. Surat Vikramasinghe, to mention a few, and many more. I wondered why you have picked me. Why nominate me to this prestigious award at this juncture? The present president and her energetic team is very wise, very smart, very sensitive to the current situation of the country. In that background, the reason you have chosen me and also veterans like Shirani Aryatilaka and Nilanthi Ratnayaka conspired to nominate me, my name in this award. For this award is to me a mystery. I can guess a reason. Before I venture into that story and the reasoning, I would like to categorically state I stand for corrections. Our country is on crossroad. 22 million people are floating aimlessly in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Your team, Madam President, have chosen this time of our history to trace and unlock the tremendous possibilities and the potential forgotten, yet still intact in this beautiful land of ours. That is why you are trying to trace history of planning, the plans and the projects through this very award that you have given to me. We, our team, started the building Paliagoda Industrial Estate years ago, followed by 5 industrial settlements back to back, one after the other. Then we found many projects under the Colombo Metropolitan Regional Structure Plan effort in the Western region. Then we together discovered at national scale new opportunities in the first ever National Physical Master Plan. Megapolis Master Plan, not once, twice, in 2003 and 2015, produced 200 individual projects. And then, this is important, to strengthen the prosperity and the eternal bond with our brothers and sisters in the north and the east through planned regional development effort. Then the planning the city in the ocean, the port city. All those plans either undone, partially done, or done in the wrong way. This is the past and this is the present that has resulted in countries' present economic collapse to a great extent. Not having accomplished the result of those plans manifested in the present collapse of economy in our country. If you pull out those plans and project reports from the empty cells of libraries, perhaps they are lying there at the moment, you will see that those projects are as relevant as today as it was when prepared years and decades ago. That is the reason, Madam President, you and your team did select the awarding of Lifetime Achievement Award as well as this particular occasion, so that you can show to the country that as a community, we were ready with so many plans. Now it is right time for all of us, transcending across all generation of the ITPSL, all of us to come together with present leadership, Committee of ITPSL, turbo propelled by the power and energy of young planners. In this momentous occasion, showcasing all our previous plans and projects and the possibilities and the opportunities that are in a way can be categorized as lost opportunities. Nevertheless, in this spirit and with this understanding, I accept Lifetime Achievement Award with today with all the treasures and the projects, treasured projects hidden in it. And I instantaneously share this award with all the past and present members of the ITPSL. This is our story. This is my acceptance speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Planner JML Jayasundara. That was the ITPSL Honorary Award winner 2022. The chief guest for tonight is none other than the State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness. He's a multi-qualified business professional with a wide range of experiences in managing both public, private sector organizations across a number of industries in both locally and internationally. He is academically qualified in 5 different disciplines of management, namely engineering, finance, marketing, business management, and economics.
He's a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and the Institute of Chartered Management Accountants in UK. He's also the honorary president of the Sri Lanka branch of the Certified Management Accountants of Australia. So it's my honor to invite the chief guest of the day, Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, to address the gathering. Sir, the invitation is for you.
Good evening. President of the Institute, Mrs. Vidyajothi Jayasundara, President-elect, Mr. Krishan Subetapala, Secretary, Ms. Priyani Navaratna, office bearers, and the members of the Institute, and friends. First of all, let me thank all of you for inviting me to attend this very important event. Your institute is a very important institute for our country, particularly for my ministry. And I think why so was explained very well through the speeches of the president and also the main presentation done by a friend of yours. Obviously, every profession in this country has a role to play in the economic development of the country. So you very correctly, both the presentations highlighted the fact, the contribution that the town planners would make for the economic development of the country. So we are happy that you are contributing that way. And we are happy that you are one of the ministries which are providing opportunities for planners in this country. When I came, I asked the president, which university produces town planners in this country? And she said, it's University of Moratuwa. Mostly or all, I don't know. But I was happy because I'm also from University of Moratuwa. So at least we share something together. We come from the same university background. I did engineering. I did electronics and telecommunication engineering at University of Moratuwa. And we had a lot of friends in the Department of Architecture, town planners, and all sorts of people from your batches. And I think perhaps some of my batchmates must also be here. Something that I want to pick from the presentations I heard was your keenness to contribute towards the economic development of the country. But we all know, as at now, economy is not a good word in this country. It is not something that we can be very proud of. Not only as a minister, but as a citizen of this country, as a professional of this country. I'm ashamed that we are in the current crisis. If you look at the countries that are going through really bad economic situations in the country, in the world today, amongst them you find Argentina, Venezuela, Sudan, Libya, and it is said that we are also in that club. So it's important, I think, we all reflect and think how we arrived here. In a way, to do so, we have to discuss politics a little bit. Sometimes politics is a subject that professionals don't want to talk about. I was in the private sector for 20 years. I worked in Sri Lanka as well as abroad. Those days, I was also one of those usual professionals who used to say we are not interested in politics. But later I came across a nice statement by the famous poet, Bertolt Brecht. I'm sure all of you have heard. He speaks about professionals who are politically illiterate. If I remember his words, he says, the worst illiterate in this world is the professional who doesn't understand politics. And he explains why. He says, this fool, use the word he used, this fool, this professional, the fool, who takes pride in saying that I'm not interested in politics, doesn't understand the cost of living, the price of bread, the price of flour, price of everything is decided by the politicians. So if you don't understand politics, you don't understand why you're in this mess. So if you say, if you're in a mess today, we need to first of all understand politics and how it all happened. So I thought, rather than talking about town planning, that you all know, or urban development, that again something that you know, I will talk a little bit about the current economic situation in the country, because that is something I believe as professionals, you must be aware of. But sometimes we are very shallow in making our decisions. We just go through Facebook or some social media, look at something that we read and make judgments. Not only we make judgments, we comment with very little knowledge of what's going on. And we think we know everything. That's the saddest part. What is the problem that country is facing today? Obviously, all of you know, if you simplify that, we have a foreign currency issue. The foreign currency issue is because of a debt crisis that we have got into. But how did this debt become a crisis? Is debt a bad thing? Is national debt a bad thing? I don't think so. If you look at all the developed countries in this world, they have very high debts. Most of the developed countries have a debt to GDP ratio more than 100%. If you take a country like Japan, but 200%. So it is not a bad thing. Borrowing is not a bad thing. All of you in your lives borrow, don't you? When you start your career, early days particularly, you may have borrowed money to buy your car. You may have borrowed money to build your house. You may have borrowed money to start a business. You may have borrowed money to develop that business. So there's nothing wrong in a country also borrowing. But the problem is, if you do not, when you do not generate sufficient money to pay back what you have borrowed, it's a problem. This is something that we need to understand. Say you start your career, you go to the bank, borrow some money to build a house. And when you borrow that money, you go for a long-term loan, maybe 20 years, 25 years. Over that long period, gradually your income will grow, your money inflow will increase. And since you are paying in small quantities every month, every year, over that period, you can pay that money. And after a while, you have now sufficient income to borrow more. You borrow more to buy your vehicle. You borrow more to do your business. So long-term borrowings is not at all a problem. For a country also, if you borrow long-term money, it is not a big problem. So if you look at Sri Lanka's debt history, until about 1990s, we had debt, but almost everything was based on concessionary loans. They were coming from various foreign governments or foreign institutes like World Bank, ADB, or JICA. They had about 25 years, 30 years payback period. Interest as low as perhaps 1%, 1.5%. So then they were never a problem. To build Mahavali, we borrowed heavily. In fact, when it came to 1989, as far back as 1989, out of our total debt, 62% were foreign debt. Today we are talking of more or less the same figures, and we are today talking about a crisis. But at that time, when the foreign debt component was 62% of the total debt, nobody said it was a crisis because we had sufficient time to pay back. But the problem started when we shifted from these long-term loans to short-term loans, or rather commercial borrowings. Go back to your story. If you borrow money to build a house, which you have to pay back in 5 years, and if you do not have sufficient money to pay back that loan, then you're in a crisis. That is why normally when you borrow short-term commercial loans, you normally borrow for the purpose of investment. Normally you borrow, that's why you call commercial borrowings. You borrow and invest. You generate money to pay back. But Sri Lanka also went into commercial borrowings starting from 2007. That was the first time we went for an international sovereign bond issue, 500 million. There was a reason for that. The reason was we were fighting a war. You know, we won the war in 2009. That was the time we were fighting a war. War has started, it was getting escalated. And no foreign government was funding the war. Nobody was giving us money to buy equipment. So we had to, at that time, go for a commercial loan. I think if I remember correct, something like very high, about 6% of whatever interest, I can't remember the exact figure, but a high interest commercial loan. And then 2009 war ended. After that, the development process started. At that time, the government thought, okay, let's borrow some money to support the development activities. So 2009, another 500 million was borrowed, international sovereign bonds. And then from that onwards, things started continuing. Every year or so, we were borrowing money through international sovereign bonds. So now these are not long-term loans. Actually, we were not getting concessional loans after 1990s because we had now, by that time, got ourselves elevated to what we call middle income status. We were reaching there. So we were not getting concessional loans. We had to go for commercial borrowing. The problem was we kept on borrowing and we kept on investing into development activities. And actually, we were building highways, we were building ports, we were building airports. No problem, because we were having physical assets. But the problem is, these things are not generating money. Or rather, we were not really focusing on how to generate money. The foreign direct investment were coming very slow. Factories are not coming up. Businesses were not coming up. So we were building infrastructure, much needed infrastructure though. Nobody can say these are not required. Because of the war situation for 30 years, our development had got halted. So we had to build those things. We had to give people electricity. We had to give people water. We had to give people highways, roads, access. They were required. But somewhere we missed out was the money was not going into real income generating assets. Then when it came to 2014, the government changed. When the government changed, the government that came to power were severely critical of the borrowings of the previous government, you may remember. They were talking about the debt trap. A lot of people wouldn't have understood it at that time, the way you understand today. That government was talking about a debt trap, complaining that the previous government has got us involved in debt trap, we have to get out. But interestingly, or sadly, what happened was they never got us out of the debt trap. They got us deeper into the debt trap over the next 5 years. What did they do? From 2009 until 2014, international sovereign bonds, we had issued up to $5 billion. $5 billion. Now these sovereign bonds, you have to pay within either 5 years or 10 years. The problem with a sovereign bond as opposed to a long-term loan, it's a long-term loan, you pay in small portions over a very long period. A sovereign bond, after 5 years, let's say, after a very short period, you have to pay back in full. If you borrowed $1,000 million for 5 years, after 5 years, you have to pay $1,000 million at once, in addition to paying the capital over that 5-year period. Now, this government, which came to power in 2015, borrowed how much you think? Over the next 5 years, 12.5 billion through international sovereign bonds. More than double what the previous government borrowed. Then comes the question, why? Some people argue and say they had to borrow, they had no option because the previous borrowings, now they had to settle during that period. Yes and no, there's a truth in it. Some things had to be settled. But if you really look at, you cannot really justify, because if you look at the sovereign bonds that were borrowed from 2009 up till 2015, out of those only 3 bonds, 2 500 million bonds and 1,000 billion bond was settled during that period. So that is only 2 billion. So you don't need 12 billion to settle 2 billion. But then of course there were long-term loans to be settled, which are coming over a long period of time. They settled about 9 billion there. So now it's answered. The 12 billion would have been spent on that. But if you go back, the previous government also had to pay like that. They, in fact, during their period, 2009 until 2014 period, they had paid something like 12 billion. So nothing different. Both governments had faced more or less the same problem. Both governments had more or less done the same mistake of continuously borrowing and not investing that money into money generating assets. If you look at exports, don't think I'm trying to be critical of the last government. This is a problem that I have to highlight, which is a common problem that was coming over the last 3 decades. The last 5 years in particular, the exports didn't grow. In 2014, the exports of this country was something like just over 11 billion, something like 11.1 billion. After 5 years, it was at about 11.8 billion. The growth was virtually not there. Over a period of 5 years, the exports had grown only by about 7%. Now, this is not good enough for a country. Now, the debt to GDP ratio, if you take the foreign debts, in 2014, it was something like 30%. By 2019, it had grown to 42%. The reason was the GDP growth rate had got slowed down. If you take 2005-2014 period, GDP grew by about 4 times, from $20 billion to 80 billion, 79 point something. But thereafter, the projection was by 2020, we should have reached something like 122 billion. But that forecast was never achieved. We ended at about 81 billion. That is where the problem was. The growth had not come. Debt has increased. So now we had a problem. Debt had to be continually served, but income was not coming forth. Now, what was the situation in 2020? 2020 and 2021, we had to settle something to the value of about $11 billion as debts. 5 billion in 1 year, 6 billion in the other year. Now, how do you settle this debt? That is where the problem was. If you look at our current account, our inflow and outflow of foreign currency, our exports, goods basically, is something like per annum about 10 billion. Our imports, something like 20 billion. So there's always a gap of about 10 billion. But if you look at our service exports, like the tourism, IT, then like foreign remittances, they bring us about another 10 billion or so. So we always balance. Exports, the inflow and outflow somehow manage. The problem is debts. Now we had 11 billion debts to be settled, but for that we didn't have savings. We had only 7.6 billion savings in the kitty. So obviously that saving has to be spent to settle the debt. And on top of that, there was another problem. The corona hit the country and the tourism income came down. Annually, we were getting something like $3 billion from tourism. When we came to power, we were expecting that to grow over the next, let's say, 5-year period to about $10 billion. Instead of growing, it virtually disappeared. So over the next 2 years, we lost about $6 billion of opportunity from tourism. That is where the problem arose. Now you can understand the numbers. There's no point blaming anybody. The reality is we had to settle our debts we were not having sufficient money, and today we are in this situation. We simply do not have money in the kitty, and debts are coming. This year, we paid $500 million in January. Next month, in a couple of months' time, in June, we have to pay another 1,000 million sovereign bonds. And finding this money is a very, very difficult task at this stage. That is why we have to go back again with a begging bowl and to IMF, to India, to China, and all those countries, and look for some short-term relief. Let's assume we find some short-term relief. The question that we have to ask all of us as citizens, are we going to continue this from this onwards? Let's say we go through this crisis 2-3 years, somehow come out of this crisis, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. We always say we are a very educated nation. Literacy rate is high. All the opportunities are there, geographically very well positioned. Then we have to do some structural adjustments at least now, and not repeat the mistakes that we continued government after government over the last couple of decades, and move forward with the right strategy. What do we have to do? We have to at least now take it upon ourselves to improve our exports. I told you exports have not been growing. Even now, just about $12 billion exports, something that we must be ashamed of. If you look at that 12 billion exports, still we are talking about 4 main categories. One is apparel industry, which is giving us about $5 billion, but out of that 5 billion, 60% go back as raw material. So we actually get about, let's say, 2 billion or 2.5 billion from our number one export income generator. Then what we were talking in 1950s, we are still talking tea, rubber, coconut. Formula hasn't changed. Composition hasn't changed. So we have to change this composition, find out where we can make money, and put our best foot forward and develop these industries. When you talk about your presentation, sir, you spoke about IT park. And I was amazed when you, in your presentation, said somebody at that time, when you were talking about the IT park, said, we don't need IT in this industry and we are developed enough. It is about, I think you're talking about 30 years ago, no? We are not developed enough. IT is our future. That is where our biggest potential lies. Our next door country, India, their GDP has been growing at a rate over the last 10 years. They are soon going to be the 3rd biggest GDP in the world. The service sector is what is bringing that GDP growth, and IT makes one of the biggest contributions. Our IT industry is still generating only about just over $1 billion. We have to take to do this to about at least 3 billion, 4 billion as fast as possible. This is something that we can do. So this is where we must make our maximum effort. How we are going to do that? I always say in our current government, we have ministries for various subjects. We have Ministry for Milk, we have Ministry for Batik, we have Ministry for Clay. But only very recently, we started focusing on IT and technology. And that is where the real focus has to come. Then skills development, foreign remittances. Actually, our biggest foreign inflow is from foreign remittances. 7 billion annually we were getting. Recently, the reason for this rupee flotation and all those things is remittances are coming down because of this Undial system and other things. Now, remittances, how do we increase? We can't be increasing these remittances by sending more and more our poor girls abroad to work in Middle Eastern countries as servants. We have to get into more skilled people. We have to send skilled people for foreign employment. So this is something that we're talking about even in our manifesto. But I'm sorry to say, even during the last 2 years, we haven't done much in that area. If you can send a trained nurse abroad, the trained nurse today in a European country can generate about $7,000, $8,000 a month. How much would a housemaid generate? $500, $600, $700? See the difference? Now we're actually starting our nursing university, hopefully this year. But even that is not fast enough. There are many other areas where we can focus and do these things. Then our tax policy. Obviously, our tax system has to be adjusted. Even the IMF report, which came out today, very clearly says we need to revisit our tax policy, bring our tax levels to a reasonable level. Of course, I was also one of the people who advocated reducing taxes and making it simplified in 2019. Why? Because at that time we had a huge tax problem in this country. The previous government had increased taxes overnight. In 2015, when they came to power, the tax to GDP ratio was 10%. They increased it to 13.5% in 1 year. Became a huge burden on businesses, particularly on small and medium sector businesses. They started struggling. And also, in addition to that, with the increased interest rates, starting from the infamous bond scam. On one side, increased interest rates, on one side, high taxes. These businesses are getting wiped out. So we had to come and give some concession. So we proposed tax reduction, but we didn't necessarily propose what is actually given. The people who were responsible for that perhaps went overboard. 2% reduction in tax levels compared to GDP. Those are the mistakes. So at least now we need to correct. Actually, there was a bill that was passed 2 days ago to increase some of the taxes back. We have to do that. We have to bring the taxes to, let's say, at least 12%, 12.5% of GDP as fast as possible. Foreign investment. Foreign investment is key to solve this crisis. But how much foreign investment are we getting? We are getting maximum I have saw for a year for the last 2 decades is, I think, 2.5 billion a year. Usually we get about 1 billion or just over that. Recent past, not even $1 billion US. It is shameful when you look at countries around us. Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, India, Bangladesh. They are getting foreign direct investment much more than that. Then we need to find out why we are not getting that. Well, who is blocking these things? Is it corruption? Is it inefficiency? Is it the system? We know these things. We have known those things for so many years, but we are not correcting. So probably you need a separate ministry just to solve this problem, to bring foreign direct investment. You may ask, why am I talking about this when I'm in the government? But that doesn't, being in the government doesn't mean you are involved in economic management, because we have different responsibilities, as you very well know. I run urban development. So I can only comment. So I take every opportunity I get to comment privately as well as publicly. We need to put things right. I hope every crisis in a way is an opportunity. Because when you're in a crisis, you look at ways of getting out of the crisis. So everybody is now in a crisis. You are in a crisis. You don't have power. You don't have diesel. You don't have, your cost of living is going up. We are all in that crisis. So we all must now understand the problem of our country is an economic problem. So we need to now very seriously discuss what is the most appropriate economic policy for this country. So are we going to listen to rhetorics from morning till evening? I'm not going to go into detail what kind of rhetorics are we talking about, or are we going to be sensible, use our brains and decide what kind of economic policies do we need? How we are going to generate money through our assets? Let's take the so-called national assets, protection on national assets. I'm always against selling national assets. I was against then, I'm against now. In late 90s, under Mr. R. Premadas and under Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaike, a lot of national assets were sold. If I remember, Victor Evans' Chaura Rajya book gives a detailed description of these assets which were sold. They never were converted to business. They were just sold. The people who bought just grabbed the assets and disappeared. They were never converted to businesses. That is not what we should do. But there are a lot of assets even now in the government, state-owned enterprises, which are making losses, which are burden to the country. We need to find a way to make these things profitable. The only way you can make those things profitable by getting the private sector engaged. But not by giving it to the private sector totally, but by doing what SLT did sometimes back, telecommunication. Get into a partnership, government, private, keep government ownership partly, but bring private sector to manage. Bring the best skills to convert these businesses. These things we have to do. So we have to make people understand that these are decisions that we have to take. I mean, if somebody says, when a foreigner comes, buys a land and put up a building, start a business, we must not be crying and saying, we are selling our assets to foreigners. They are not going to take that land away. The land is going to be here. If a future government, if they want to nationalize, they can nationalize. So let's not worry about those things. Let us invite foreign direct investment. Let people come and start businesses. Bring money. So we have to change our mindset. So a lot of things we need to do over the next 2 to 3 years. I hope whatever the political parties will come to this, understand this reality. We can fight each other, talk about different policies, but now no way out unless we get our economic policies right. That is why I, in a way, support this all-party conference. Maybe nothing will come out of that, but at least there's a discussion. There's an opportunity to challenge. There's an opportunity for opposition to challenge the government. Sometimes even within the government, we don't have that opportunity. We don't get that opportunity to challenge our other ministers. Unless you're in cabinet, they say sometimes even in the cabinet, you can't do that. But these opportunities will give an opportunity for all parties to come and challenge. So I think other parties also should come, make use of that opportunity. At least a discussion will start. People will understand. And I appeal to you as professionals, participate in this discussion. Learn about these things, read the numbers. Beyond your profession, go and do some study. Then as professionals, you will be able to educate the other people. You will be able to educate the society. Unless we get the entire society, not only the professional, entire society politically literate, we can't get out of this crisis. Because it is politics which put us in this. Without understanding that properly, we can't get out of this. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, please remain on stage. There is a special token of appreciation prepared for you by the ITPSL. To give away the special token of appreciation, I would like to invite Plnr Devshriyani Jayasundara, President, Plnr Krishan Sugatapala, President-elect, and Plnr Priyani Navaratna, Secretary of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, ITPSL members.
Next up, to memorize us with instrumental music, a three-piece band is ready to stage. Please put your hands together for Dulad Chamara, Shehan Hevalage, and for Lalitri Dayaratna.
Thank you for that beautiful performance. Now, as we have reached the end of the celebrations of the 40th anniversary, to deliver the vote of thanks, we cordially invite Plnr Priyani Navaratna, the Secretary of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka.
Honorable Minister, dear members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I deem it's a great honor and privilege to deliver the vote of thanks to the linguistic guests gathering here today, both physically and virtually on this memorable occasion. Firstly, I would like to express utmost thanks to our chief guest, Honorable Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, State Minister of Urban Development, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness, for gracing this occasion and delivering an inspiring speech. Emeritus Professor Willie Mendis, sir, we are forever grateful to you for being to pioneer in founding our institute. Your continuous mentorship and guidance to lead the institute to where it is today, and most importantly for joining with us to share the memories of our history on this special day. I take this opportunity to thank all the past presidents, secretaries, council members, and senior planners of the ITPSL for their assistance throughout and participation in this event. Actually, it is my pleasure to thank Plnr Hemantha Jayasundara, one of the past presidents of the ITPSL, for continuous support and his speech on way forward of the institute. It is inevitable that this event would not have been a success without the direct mentorship and guidance of the President of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. Plnr Devshriyani Jayasundara, Madam, we are grateful for your commitment towards making this event a success. A special standing committee named 40th Anniversary Standing Committee formed to facilitate the organizing of the 40th Anniversary celebration activities. This committee is the live wire behind today's event. I thank Chairman of the 40th Anniversary Standing Committee, Plnr Chintaka Ratnasiri, and Convener Plnr Dr. Upuli Pereira, and all the committee members, including YPF members, for their remarkable effort to make this event a reality. Special thanks is extended to the main sponsor of the event, CHEC Port City, and all the other sponsors for their kind contribution for this event. I would like to thank all the fellow members, corporate members, associate members, and student members of the ITPSL for participation in this event. Finally, I would like to thank our administrative staff, Mrs. Yashoda Karunaratna, Mr. Harus Ranasinghe, who put enormous amount of efforts behind the screen. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Sahanatma and Sajini Senadira for today's comparing, those who are comparing today. Thank you. Once again.
Thank you, Plnr Priyani Navaratna, Secretary of ITPSL. For all these years, the planners, the product of ITPSL, have shown nothing but excellence. For them, excellence is not just an act, it has become more of an habit. And Mother ITPSL has always been the shadow behind these great planners who created masterpieces. So as we celebrate the end of the 40th anniversary, it is a fact that there is no true ending, but just a new beginning for many more successful years.
While wishing a happy anniversary to ITPSL, we wish that all success to rise, shine above as always. Thank you for joining us in this wonderful evening. And with that, we would like to conclude the 40th anniversary celebrations of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka.